October Visa Bulletin with no prediction is our topic for discussion. I'm Sam Shihab with the law firm Shihab Burke.
I'm Brian Burke with that very same law firm.
Shihab Burke.
Yeah.
Attorneys at law. We practice immigration law in the U.S. and throughout the world out of our office in Dublin, Ohio. And we would like to have an opportunity to have an adult conversation about the Visa Bulletin.
No sensationalist, everybody's going to be current, nobody's become current talk, Sam. No predictions, right?
Yeah, everybody wants to hear good news, and we want to give our discussion in an accurate way.
Yeah.
So obviously this year, well, Brian can confirm because he was crunching numbers for us, we may not expect a spillover from the family side of the visa availability, and there is no pandemic to hope for unused visas to take advantage of. We have 140,000 green cards that come into the employment base, and we have more than a decade of backlog for India, substantial backlog in China, and backlog across the world, except one category, which is EB5, some of it.
Yeah.
With that very difficult conditions, let's take a step back and look at the system, some numbers.
What goes in? We know the October Visa Bulletin's coming. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's talking about it. Let's talk about what goes into it. And I don't know, Sam. I thought maybe I would start with the numbers I was crunching just before I came in here, and we'll talk about Okay, the Visa Bulletin is driven by visa availability. If there are more visas available, the Visa Bulletin gets driven further ahead, right? And if that's the case, fine, fantastic. The question we have is, how many visas are going to be available? And as you mentioned earlier, unused family preference visas, which I believe there's 226,000 it is, roll over from the prior fiscal year, move over to the employment-based category. And the last couple years, the big trend has been, hey, the consulates were shut down due to COVID. They're moving slow due to COVID, making for unused family preference visas, which are typically issued at the consulates abroad, and thereby making tons of extra employment preference visas available to those who typically use them in the United States. So one of the things I was looking, I was trying to evaluate was the productivity at the consulates abroad, and I have some spreadsheets that I'm going to show everybody relating to them. And let's see if I can push the right button on this computer here. And there we are. So this is one where what we're looking at here, Sam, is data on fiscal year 2022 productivity at the consulates and fiscal year 2023 productivity at the consulates. On the left is fiscal year 2022, all the data that's available for the entire fiscal year. On the right is fiscal year 2023, which is not entirely available yet because the Department of State has only put out visa issuance data from the consulates abroad through June of 2023, a couple months ago in this current fiscal year. And the bottom line is across the board, general visa productivity. This includes, Sam, not just family preference cases. This is immediate relatives, employment-based, any other type of visa, immigrant visas at the consulate. And the bottom line is productivity is up across the board at the consulates. They're averaging, I ran the numbers, an average of about 50,000 visas every month at the consulates abroad. And really, you can see where the sort of turning point was in fiscal year 2022. Sometime around February, they're consistent through October through February. They're really averaging about mid-30,000s of visas. Then March, it just sort of started screaming upward, and there it has stayed through pretty much this entire fiscal year. And again, this fiscal year, we're averaging 50,000 visas issued a month if you do an average of those numbers in this column right here. So great. Okay, well, not great. More productivity, generally speaking, at the consulates abroad means that odds are there's more family preference visas issuance, which means less rollover into the employment-based categories. So Sam, then the inevitable question is, well, how are they doing on family preference visas this year to hit that goal of 226,000? Right? Well, I went into the Department of State monthly issue, monthly visa issuance statistics for this year to date, and I did my best to extract the numbers of family preference visas that were issued at the consulates abroad. So take these numbers with a grain of salt. I don't claim perfection, but it'll give you an idea as to the productivity, and they seem pretty consistent here. And here it is, the next tab in this spreadsheet up on the screen here. Fiscal year 2023. Again, they have visa data available through June, so these are actual numbers. The only one that seemed a little bit high was March, where they issued 25,000, quite a bit, significantly bit higher. I looked at the numbers. I didn't see anything wrong with them, but
if you looked at March the previous year, also was high. If you go back, it looks like
well, there you go. So maybe my data is not particularly. You're right. It's where the
see how it peaks at the same time. So it looks like there's some kind of a trend.
Yeah. So here it is. So up through June, this is actual data. My best guess of sorting through the data at what they consider family preference categories. I'm an immigration attorney. I can do that pretty well. And the rest of these things, these numbers here for July, August, September, are an average. Right, an average number of based upon it's the average of October through June, which is 18,318, and I sort of fill that data in here. I sum them up, and basically they're on track to issue 219,823, assuming they maintain the average family preference visas at the consulates abroad, which is that number based upon these last 3 months being an average is about 7,000 short of the total number.
So it's going to meet the demand.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to use all the family preference visas available. So, big picture, that, and I'll zoom in a little bit more so people can see those numbers just a little bit better. It seems that, like you said, they're on track to use substantially all of the family preference visas at the consulates abroad. It's great for those people in the family preferences who have been, stuck having no activity on their visas for a year. But for those in the employment categories who are obviously want those visas for themselves, it's a bummer to use a word. So that is something that goes in the visa bulletin. We have seen great leaps forward in the visa bulletins in the last couple of years. October, and October is typically a month when the visa bulletin jumps forward because that's when that new 140,000 minimum visas becomes available. And the problem, I guess, the whole point of that is this October, the less visas available, the less of a jump you might expect.
Yeah. And with regards to that, we do expect a forward jump in the rest of the world, I guess, because that's where the majority of the visa numbers will go to, is to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So that is probably going to happen. The question is, with the large backlog for China and India, how much of that is going to benefit these countries which have very limited.
The old 7% limitation.
The 7% limitation per country. Probably is going to be a drop in the bucket compared to the demand.
Yeah.
So no prediction, but we probably don't feel that we expect a major jump on the final action date. And as the State Department told us time and time again, that you should expect something like the dates for filing to become close to the final action date on the beginning of the year. But that's going to be also difficult to predict. But the deep retrogression for second preference, third preference India 2009 right now, whereas the filing date is 2012. And in the 1 year retrogression, a difference between final action date for India's EB2 and then the dates for filing being 2012. These seems to be reasonable timelines that we're going to see that type of a movement probably in October without really predicting, because really nobody knows.
Yeah. Now, in preparing for this presentation, I was thinking about, well, why isn't the visa bulletin, accurate? Why are people left with pending I-485 cases, or the visa's unavailable for them? It's not so bad for those people. They probably got to file I-485s earlier than the government maybe thought they should have. But I guess I wanted to bring up, what are the blind spots of the government when it comes to creating a visa bulletin? And one of them seems to be that, I am doubtful that the Department of State gets really great data from USCIS as to how many people come attached to an I-140. Think of it. When you file an I-140, an I-140 names one individual, and there is a part on their form that indicates, how many people are immigrating with you. One, I find it doubtful that USCIS transmits that specific data to the Department of State for calculating visa bulletin availability. Secondly, that data, especially for people from backlog countries, must be out of date. Think of it. Somebody who is born in India, they have a priority date of, sometime in, 2013, for example. That's a decade ago. In that time, they may have added a spouse, and they may have born in another country, and they have also added, foreign-born children. That's more people that the Department of, even if when they take that I-140, USCIS says, hey, look, we have a visa, you need a visa for this guy as well as the people listed on this form. A wife. If that person adds family members before they get a visa available, well, so the data of the Department of State is going to be off. And additionally, the other side is multiple applications. It's not entirely clear how the what kind of data gets sent to the Department of State, but imagine it. Somebody has been in the United States, especially from backlog country like India, is going to have been in the country for a decade. They might have an I-140 when they first got here. They may have changed employers. They may have had another I-140 in the EB2 and EB3 category. Now, if the Department of State has really bad data, imagine it, a guy or gal with a spouse and 2 kids, total of 4 people, right? And times 3 I-140s, that could, if they get that sort of data, the Department of State does, that could create an massive artificial inflation of the perceived demand for visas.
On the other hand, how many 2013 priority date individuals have given up completely?
Yeah.
And left the country?
Yeah.
So that's something that is nobody accounts for.
You can't
we have well, you can if you want to, but
how do you count?
Sends out a census card at the end of every year and say, if you're in the country, you have a 2013 priority date, please check this box, okay, and send it back.
And if you don't, what happens if you don't send that box back? Nothing
Well,
should happen.
if you create something,
you create an incentive,
then I mean there are ways to do it. It's not being
okay.
done.
Your first draft, I won't criticize. I won't criticize it too hard.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, there's no way. Well, you can also cross-check your H-1Bs. You can cross-check your EAD approval. I mean, there are methods to do it. We're not here to create the method. We're here to say that there's no method that exists to confirm that all these 2013 and 2014 priority date exist today and viable.
No, I mean, I've talked
on the flip side of it, Brian, in their defense, this year they're saying they ran out of visas. Right?
Yeah.
So, and these priority date that we have, the 2009 priority date for India, for example, that, based on our understanding, is the last visa available that they would like not to approve.
I think it's a reasonable one,
And therefore, their visa bulletin date in general in the ballpark. It's not way off.
Well, I mean, that 2009 date, though, that's somebody who is out there in the woodwork, though. I mean, somebody 2009 case that just got their green card. Whew. It means you don't really know. You don't really know. Well, we don't know what they have in there, but there's so many unknowns at play. And you see, Tim, you're talking about people who gave up. What about people? I have a guy who's in my inbox right now who basically lost all hope for a while. He went to Canada. And he's now applying for an immigrant visa because, well, he can now. They jumped up far enough for him, and I'm still working on it. He's a Canadian citizen now, but
all these things are unknown.
Yeah, massive unknown.
Contribute to the inaccuracy of the visa bulletin.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, ultimately they're pulling boxes and they're approving green cards and they're looking at priority dates, and therefore, maybe it's not how you calculate, it's what you see on the ground. if you're approving 2009 and 2010, and you still have a lot to approve, and you run out, you run out of visa, then your numbers are in the ballpark. I don't care about the calculation. I care about facts on the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
Forget about the number. Forget about the 2013 guys that quit. Forget about the number of children they've had and how many.
I guess you're saying if you're still approving cases in 2009, your visa that's where your visa bulletin should be.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
And that's the sad reality is that probably as we criticize them as much as we want to about their system, there aren't enough visas to go around the demand for the applicants and for the appetite of this country for professionals to stay competitive. And it is a shame that we bring these people, H-1B, labor certification, no problem at all. 5 years later, stand in line.
Well, so Sam, you've highlighted the problem, and I think it makes a good segue to the sort of last topic here. Maybe not reform, because this is not a topic of reform, but there's the rumor going around, and it's really kind of based upon that letter that 56 or so Congress folks sent to the executive branch and Department of State saying, hey, make everybody's priority date current for the month of October. It's not a change in the law. It's basically, we think you have, or not everybody's final action date, but everybody's date for filing current for the month of October, and let them file I-485s and give them the dignity of, having some sort of stability. Exactly. Practically speaking, what do you think are? No
chances of that happening.
Wait. Hold on, Sam. I said no predictions. Is this an October?
I'm glad you almost set me up, Brian. You almost set me up. But go ahead.
Okay, so I guess
I'm not predicting.
I would.
But what are the chances of that happening?
That's predicting. So here's what
What are the chances of that happening? I'm not predicting. Oh, my hand. Sorry.
So I would be very surprised to see that happen. I don't. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but I would be very surprised if that happens. It just seems like a political grenade.
So switch politics for a little bit, because obviously it's all about politics.
Indeed, immigration in the United States is inherently political.
So, Biden has taken different looks and different approaches to things. Now, the problem we have with the Democratic administration of this administration is of a different color than the problem we've had in the prior one. So the prior one, we've had a guy that he woke up one day and he said, I want to kill the H-1B program.
I'm
going to create public charge rules that are ridiculous to enforce or even comply with. I'm going to create things that are going to make people coming from another country feel the pain.
Miserable, yeah. Make it hard to immigrate.
So he's gone for right now.
Yeah.
We get this new guy, smooth talker, loves everybody, blah, blah, blah. But he is tied to the unions so much and protecting American workers' mentality to a fault sometime, where he's afraid to upset these protectionists from opening that gate because he needs their vote. And they can flip on him, and if he doesn't have the union's vote, and if they can label him successfully as anti-American worker, they will kill him.
That's what I think about when people ask me about that sort of change. I think about what is the headline going to be, and how will it be used against an executive branch who does that.
Yeah. So we're 19 minutes into the hour, Brian. I don't know if any comments you want to talk about methodology, and we can flip it over and take questions.
Well, so I thought I had, I had one of those things, Sam, where I thought I had a really great point that I wanted to make.
And I killed it for you.
No, you didn't kill it. I killed it. It just sort of floated out of my brain, like, I don't know.
Outlook, not a prediction?
No, not the last slide. Something you said just sparked something in my brain, and that spark fizzled.
Okay,
I guess. So I think what we do is we do what we always do, is we turn to the point in the presentation where we start taking people's questions here. And prior to doing that, we have to remind everybody that, we are just taking a short snippet of a question from you where we don't have all the facts and all the information, let alone the documents, and we're going to give you some general information based upon some general questions. Keep in mind that just no attorney-client relationship is obviously established, pursuant to this thing, and we would always encourage everybody to talk to an immigration lawyer of your choice about any sort of immigration question you have, because it's important, serious business, and there's any number of great immigration attorneys out there who would be thrilled to talk to you.
Absolutely. And then we have the first question from Bram KC. Brian, take it.
So, is it legal to run YouTube channels on F1 or H1 visa, considering that they get paid for the content? I'm seeing a lot lately. Is it an unauthorized side gig?
Is it legal to run YouTube channels for F1?
Like imagine me. I'm on an H1B visa, and I'm really into I'm working on my H1B job, and on the side I like cooking. I started a cooking channel. And sorry, my hand's going out of frame. I start a cooking channel, I start cooking on YouTube, and I start getting subscribers, and I start making money, and I very much like that money, and I'm taking in that money.
That's an excellent question. So we, like just everybody, a lot of you guys have been guests before on our 1 hour communication with you, and some of you may be new. We like to kind of dissect the answer.
Yeah.
We don't like to give it like a short answer. So sometimes we get lengthy, and hopefully that's helpful and not frustrating. If it is, let us know in the channel, and we can adjust. So that's an excellent question. I've never thought about before, but it is obviously, it's the line between passive and active. So the law in general says anything you do as a hobby, as a passive activity, is a hobby.
Yeah, like if you wanted to, I don't know.
But it's hard for me to call this passive.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's a simple answer for somebody who's doing that. We have a YouTube channel. We have subscribers. We make nothing off this, right? My humble, I like to find out where that line is and take a big old step back, because I don't want to be dancing on the edge of that line. I don't want to be falling off that cliff. Don't turn on the monetization on your YouTube.
And how much money you make? You don't make a lot of money. It's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, unless you're getting millions and millions of views. I mean, there are some people that make some serious cash.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've read about this wonderful personality that she makes amazing money, that she had to create an AI because she's talking to too many people to be able to talk to everybody, and people are happy to talk to the AI instead of talking to her. And she's making like $4 or $5 million a month. She was on an article in the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're making that kind of money, you're in trouble. Good for you, but you're in trouble for the H-1B visa. But that's, I think, the answer to the question.
You should base it bottom line.
It should not. Turn off the monetizing. It's silly. Because unless you're making a lot of money, and if you are, then set up shop outside the U.S. and do it.
Yeah. Here's a great comment from Atul Mohan. Well, nice topic. Understood the hesitation, elephant in the room of USCIS makes all immediate dates for filing current or not. Worst case, how far will it go? And that's the best case for people, for record, going far. What they say about the dates for filing is that they reflect the future of the final action dates, and I think it's reasonable to presume that that's
it should be dancing around that.
It should
be dancing around that on the final.
We're happy to take more. That's gravy. That's icing on the cake. It's silver linings on clouds. But
Okay, so if you make that screen a little bit bigger,
yes,
Ryan,
I can
do it, but I don't understand.
I have these giant glasses, and they help. That's
Atul Mohan. It's against H-1B rules. You can argue if your spouse on H-4 EAD can open one.
It's talking about that question.
But obviously it's an excellent point. But the spouse can open one.
Yeah, H-4 EADs, you can do whatever you want with those. You can be anything you want.
If you're there on that channel yourself and you're monetizing it, I mean, well, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
back to this question, I guess. So let's assume.
It's a good question. It's a fun question.
Number one, to monetize it, you have to have at least a very low threshold, 1,000 subscribers or something. So that person gets the right subscriber, he monetizes it or she monetizes it. She or he are on H-1B.
Yeah.
She makes $20 a month.
Yeah.
Did they break H-1B rules?
I'm going to give you such a lawyer answer. Technically, technically yes. You know, you shouldn't be working out. If it can be classified as work and it's outside the terms of your H-1B, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You know.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you the lawyer response.
Well, I'd love to argue the other side.
Well, no. I'm gonna technically yes, practically.
I'm a U.S. Practically speaking, probably not. You know, but you know, it's I would think.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I'm asking you a tough question. I'm not asking you easy questions.
Well, again,
why would I make things easy for you?
If people ask me for my advice, I mean, you have a very simple option to not turn on that monetization.
My advice is this silly and stupid to do it unless it's serious money. And if serious enough,
you're going for another hunkin' type of visa. You're gonna consider, I don't know.
It's a self-employment.
Yeah,
there's no visa available for that.
Yeah, you're entirely right. Well, here, Sam, you get yourself.
Not only that, but also it's out there in the public. I mean, you know, all you do the government to search you, and then they say,
Yeah, and the government does, look you up on the internet. We occasionally see RFEs saying, "Hey, we found on the internet about you and XYZ." I mean, Sam, I guess if your YouTube is unmonetized, you're not making any money of it, and somebody thinks you're that great and it's worthy of making money, you might find a job offer to join somebody's company and then get a fancy visa like that and then do it. Yeah.
All right. Again, Ram KC. Again, F1.
Against I think it's still the issue of the. Yeah. I mean, F1 employment.
Don't know why students still do it. I know H4EAD can do it. Type of employment.
Yeah, yes. F1 employment is supposed to be related to your degree field of study.
Yeah, I mean, unless your study is media.
Yeah.
I mean, there are. I mean, we've had F1s that had media and TV production.
F1s can start businesses, and if
media and TV production, they can do it.
Yeah.
But if you are an accounting or IT or engineering.
You have a side gig that's kind of unrelated. Yeah.
And all the category dates will never become current. It's a joke, and of course, it's a political game. And imagine processing 2 million applications and sending receipts.
Yeah,
will be $225 to get the receipts.
So, I must comment on this a little bit. So, all dates becoming current is not a joke, for it has happened before, right?
One time.
One time is enough times. For me.
It has been not exactly 2 decades, but close to it.
Closing in on it, 15 years.
2007?
2007, so yeah. Well, I guess, I would agree it would take them to 20. I mean, think of it. In October 2020, we were filing cases in that big hullabaloo then, and it literally took them until we were getting receipt notices in March and April. Yes. They were absolutely overwhelmed by that, and this rush would be sooner, it would be even greater. And I can't imagine the government going, we can't handle that, and just choosing not to.
They can't handle it.
That's a practical matter. I'm glad Ryan brought that up because we didn't talk about it there, but it's a simple, basic, practical consideration.
Yeah, explorer, dreamer.
Yeah,
sharing his thoughts with us. USS will lose the H-1B renewal cash cow like 3B versus one-time 485 cash of 1B over the next 6 to 10 years. I would hope they don't think they set their immigration policy based upon, slowly soaking, U.S. companies for their immigration filing fees for H-1B visas. Oh, I will be shocked if they don't.
I guess there has to be.
There's no way that
it's a self-funded agency, right?
It's an agency that's desperate for their money, okay? And the more money they get from them, the more they get to squander, and they love their money.
So this goes on the list of the FOIAs that I want to issue and they'll never answer fully. I want to see the internal meeting notes on
If you gotta give them a little bit more credit, they would say, everybody take your pencil down. We're not taking notes here.
Yeah.
Okay. Close the door.
Well, I told you it's on the list.
Blah blah blah.
It's on the list of FOIAs that I would never get an honest answer to.
Yeah. Explorer Dreamer is right on the money. USCIS is not here to make the immigration easier. Yeah.
Well, hey, sometimes I always.
He's on a roll.
Yeah. Now policies get him in, then even USCIS is in trouble. Yeah, they occasionally do things too. DOL is in trouble. DOL is in trouble because they can't seem to process a perm in under 10 months at this point. Yep, Explorer Dreamer is on the roll.
We probably want to give somebody else some time. So let's go in to Atul Mohan. I'm sure all of us would be happy to start paying green card EAD renewal costs even if the green card does not come in for a decade. Just give us a damn EAD. Save us from modern age bonded labor. For crying out loud, I agree.
This is fun. This is we're living in the good version. It used to be there was portability rules for H1B workers. This is the nicer version of the H1B program versus what people dealt. When did they introduce? Is it 2000? They introduced the concept of portability, or maybe it's like 2000.
Clinton,
believe it or not. American. It's the American competitiveness, the AC21.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that sounds. Your sounds about.
I think it's part of that around the year 2000. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Explorer would love to take all your comment, but I'm just trying to allow equal access.
Yeah.
But you make excellent comments.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking generally about how long it will take to become current, and the problem is without extra visa availability is the real challenge there.
Emily Marshall, what is the reason why different EAD have different processing time? Prediction for rest of the world EB3 final action date. So why different EADs have different processing time, Brian?
Well, different EADs have different processing time because there's tons of different varieties of EAD. I mean, I'm going to start listing off a couple.
So why would they be treated differently?
Because they'd have different requirements. Think of it. Extraordinary circumstances EAD is basically you're making a plea saying, I'm in a lousy situation. Whereas students, for OPTs and STEM OPTs, they just have to sort of, check some boxes off. H4s just have to be the spouse of maybe you have to be the spouse of an H1B and have an AC21 extension beyond 6 years, an I-140 effectively. Yeah. Different requirements across the board. Yeah. Now, I wonder how they process these things. Do you think they have one place where they process all the EADs? Or?
No, and that's really where I'm thinking you're right on the money, but I think the practical reason is that all these officers are sub-trained. So an asylum officer or an asylum EAD officer is trained to evaluate and approve an asylum application. A adjustment of status employment base is trained to do EAD for employment, and
we don't know for sure, but that's how I presume they work. The person who takes the primary case.
There's no way.
Why would I hand something?
They're not lawyers. Yeah. They're not lawyers. These are professionals, but they are. I'm not sure, and don't quote me, but I'm not sure even a college degree is required for some of these jobs. Yeah. So they're sub-trained. Very.
Here is how you do it, and the workload you know how to do this one type of EAD, and that does not transfer to another one because you have a checklist, a set procedure for it.
Yeah, and therefore the workload changes, and therefore the delay.
Yeah, just because there's a massive overflow of adjustment EADs doesn't mean the asylum EAD guy or gal can do it.
Yeah. Now, experienced officers. We'll have a lot more training on a wider spectrum.
I sometimes talk to officers when I go to interviews, and I was reviewing H1Bs in the Vermont Service Center. And now I'm in a field office, things like that. So, but they're just the agency can't account for that, I guess.
Yes. Yes. All right. So Harini Banu has a question: do we need the original birth certificate for I-485 application? Or a non-color copy of it sufficient when the original is lost? All right, so that's a good question.
Yeah.
So when you file the I-485, you have to be making copies of original when you submit.
Yeah.
And obviously, the copy you have is a copy of the original. It's lost, but it's a copy of the original. And I don't think, unlike the picture, the photograph requirement, I don't think you have to make a copy of the original taken in the last 30 days. There's no requirement as far as the copy
I
is
see.
concerned.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter how old, it doesn't matter if the original wouldn't up in smoke as long as you have a copy of the original.
To file the adjustment.
Yeah.
However.
Yes.
All right, Brian is dying to get to
No,
the
no,
however.
no, no, no.
Because,
you had a however too, Sam. I just want to make sure we get to that however.
Because it's a big however.
Yeah.
Brian, go ahead.
As a practical matter, USCIS can and sometimes does ask for your original birth certificate, most likely scenario during an interview.
Well, you must have the original if you are called for an interview.
Yeah.
Because they are going to ask you to bring an original of everything. And I have had adjustment interviews where we walk into the officer and the officer, who happened to be very experienced officer, she says, I need the original birth certificate. Yeah. And that's the only thing I need. And you hand the original birth certificate, takes it, she makes another copy of it, she inspects it, hands it back, she said, I'm done.
Yeah.
So
not every case, even if you get interviewed, they're going to ask for an original birth certificate generally, but basically if they ask for it, you can't provide it, you're going to be in a scramble to get, either a new original or non-availability documentation, and I would not want that. I would basically, relatively easy to start working on it now if you know you're going to need it in the future.
Yes. Brian.
So, from Atul Mohan, priority date 2015. Any options? Go to Canada for 1 year and apply for EB1C. Well, let's address that one first. I think that's a pretty good option. Now, the devil is in the details. It's not just go to Canada for 1 year. It's go to Canada, work for a qualifying organization in a managerial or executive role for 1 year. Something you definitely have to talk to an attorney about the details. We have somebody who we know.
You don't have to go to Canada necessarily. Go abroad.
You're right. You're right. Any country that is where you can find any country where there's an international branch of your U.S. petitioning employer. It doesn't even have to be your current employer. Somebody who's willing to say, "I'll take you in country X for a year at a managerial role, and then we'll send you to the U.S. branch, and bam, we will do." And we've had clients who have employees that they like. They want to promote them anyway, and they've definitely said, "Okay, we'll send you abroad for a year. We'll see you in a year on an L1, and then we'll do an EB1 for sure." But there's other questions. Change job, restart the PD recapture, keep waiting for your date to become current, and meanwhile try to prove you're an Einstein/contest EB1A. EB1As are that's the other path to an EB1, and EB1s A's are they're really the top end of your occupation, but that's another option. Yeah.
All right. So Rahul Gupta. If a certain proportions of those with EB2 India priority date 2012 to 2017 continue to move to EB1 and use up all India EB1 quota.
This is from Rahul Gupta Bing.
Do you think it's possible that EB1 India priority date may never get beyond 2010 in the foreseeable future? Thank you for your time and your great work. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's basically the same backlog, the same number. It's 140,000, 7% cap. Whether you get it from here or there, it's really the conversation about EB1 is how to jump the line.
Yeah.
But not how to reduce the line. The line is going to continue to be big. But
yeah.
if everybody moves, it's almost like if you go into a grocery shop and then there's a cash register that just opens up, and she says, "All right here," and then everybody jumps from this line to that line. It's the same line.
Yeah. Everybody's in the fast lane on the highway. It ain't that fast anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if there's that many people jumping from EB2 to EB1. I mean, EB's.
Well, the hypothetical is.
Well, yeah. I mean, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. But ultimately, if you qualify for EB1, you're going to be able to do better than if you don't qualify for EB1. And trying it is a smart thing, because if they say no, what the heck? And a good lawyer will advise you whether you qualify or not, so you don't have to really guess too much. I mean, it's not rocket science. Hey, you have a good case, you have a bad case. You have a strong case, you have a weak case. So that's what we have.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep on going through the questions here. There's some general commentary here. Well, I'm going to take one of these comments from Explorer Dream here. EB3 from our group from Explore Dream, EB2, EB3, Indian I-45 moving to EB1C is not possible. We can dream. It is possible. Again, I just finished up that process for somebody earlier this year.
Well, it's not possible for everybody.
Well, yeah, it's not. That's a good
It's
point.
not possible for everybody, and it's not. Obviously, if you are a professional with 10 plus years of experience, you are in the cusp of being on a managerial level, or already are in a managerial level.
Yeah.
The question becomes: can you find an employer that is willing to take you overseas for a year and bring you back, and willing to file your L1A and your EB1C?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, Explorer Dreamer, just going through the comments here, sort of does, say that, it's just not practical for most people. It kind of, taking the same position, the idea that maybe, there's not that many upgrades from EB1.
It's the feeling. Explorer Dreamer is reflecting the feeling of being trapped.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
It's a horrible feeling. The feeling of being trapped. So you need to kind of liberate yourself from that, because you really don't want to, because it hurts you. You're a professional, you got a job, you're doing well. You just look for ways.
Well, I am, those who know me, and I've probably talked to a bunch of people in this audience personally before, and some of you don't, I try to be a pretty optimistic sort of guy. And, take your victories, a little bit at the time. I remember when we were at the India Festival a couple weeks ago. I talked to somebody, who just got his I-140 approved. Yay! And then he said, okay, well now I got to wait for my priority date to come up. And part of having that I-140 is approved as well. At least you get a little bit of stability. You don't have to worry about your H-1B. Yeah. Take the little victories that you can get. It's easy. It's really easy for me to say I fully understand the frustration, but yeah.
Film, if I can pronounce it correctly.
Filmal.
I have an I-140 priority date of 2017. I'm currently working for UN on a G4 visa, diplomatic visa. Will I be eligible for I-45 assuming priority date becomes current as of October 23? Well, I don't know your country of origin, your country of birth. So with that, it's hard to answer that question. But if you are from rest of the world, right now, and I don't even know the EB2 or EB3, there's not enough information here to really answer. Unfortunately. But you're no different than anybody else.
This one, I think you would have skipped over here. When do you think the October visa bulletin will be released? Now, typically, would we see it around like the second week of the month, maybe the late second week, early the third week, around the 13th, 14th, 15th, that sort of thing. Sometimes when the visa bulletins are interesting and exciting, you see them late in the month. Think of October 2020 when there was a big hullabaloo. I think it was like something along the lines of September 27th when they issued that visa bulletin. So all bets are off on that thing. I don't see this as being a crazy visa bulletin with any sort of new crazy factors like as they had in October 2020, the massive visa availability.
But every critical one is released late.
Yeah, later than the ones. My best guess would be the later than the ones you saw.
Yes. Anand 1212.
Yeah.
I hear a lot about the consular processing taking a long time as compared to I-485. In comparative terms, how much longer does it take? I have an approved I-140 EB1A India with priority date of December 2022. That's part one.
Yeah. And let's see if, here.
And part two of the question is, do you think EB1A India with priority date December 22 will become current in October? So let's take the first one here. I think it's gotten to the point where a consular processing may not be slower than an I-485, and be aware that while USCIS would like to discourage you from doing that, there is no law that prohibits you from pursuing both at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can pursue consular processing and I-485. It's 100% legal, and this was a very common practice done many years back when they were close in time, and then consular processing got backlogged and 485 got more efficient. So everybody abandoned that, and then the government says, well, we don't want you to do that. Well, tough. Yeah. You're entitled to pursue both avenues, and the one comes first, you can withdraw the other one.
Yeah. Something I wanted to note, depends upon how your I-140 was filed. If you didn't have it marked for consular processing, you're going to have to file an I-824 to get consular processing started, and that process alone can take about a year.
But you can start it now.
Well, yeah. Well, doesn't your party have to be current in order to file?
Action on approved petition?
Yeah, I think so.
You have to have an approved I-140, that's all. You don't have to be current.
All right.
Yeah. Action on approved petition, you just can inform USCIS, and then they will let you know, okay, we received it, we'll let you know when you're current.
I mean, that makes sense to me, but for some reason
I mean, this is without going back to my books and refreshing my mind.
Yeah.
But because an action on approved petition, all what you're telling them is, please
hey,
inform
here's what I want to do.
Please inform the consulate, the State Department that I have an approved I-140.
Well, the reason why I think they might do otherwise, because
there's an action,
is they'll say, well, there's nothing we can do right now. You don't have
But if you have to become current to file an action on approved petition and it takes 1 year, you're going to get retrogressed halfway through it. What's going to happen? They're going to withdraw. So you can file, I think, action on approved petition, subject to my confirmation later, at the time the I-140 is approved.
A question that I made up, so
Yeah.
But
well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I got one here for you, Brian.
From
And I gave it to you because of the long name.
easy squeezy, Sam. Kaja Asmath Muhammad.
Well, I would have said exactly the same thing.
Good. I am on concurrent H1 with part-time work of 8 hours per week. What happens during H1 layoff? Will I be in status after 60 days, and can my wife continue working on H4 EAD?
So yes, an excellent question. Go ahead. Okay, so I'm on a concurrent H1B, right? And it has 8 hours. Yeah. So I think the question that comes, what happens during H1 layoff? I think he's asking if the main H1B gets laid off.
Yeah.
You have another H1B, and you're fine for right now. That's my best answer without researching it. I don't think it falls. I think you're the only problem with it is you're below the poverty guidelines at 8 hours, and that might cause a problem.
I think, yeah. I think my conservative. I mean, that H1B though is filed for the part-time one. Assuming that's the one that's left over, is said it's concurrent employment for 8 hours a week. I think
it may be in jeopardy. I don't have the answer off the top of my head on that one.
Yeah. That's the sort of thing where you'd research, but I think even if you don't find an answer, your conservative one might be you may want to file an amendment, and you may want to transfer this to full-time to put yourself above the poverty.
Well, he may not have the opportunity.
This is true. That's an excellent
question.
That's a complex hypothetical where there's so many facts that would be critical for this, and the obvious one is somebody willing to take it.
Kaja Asmath, come back next week. We'll have the answer for you.
Yeah.
HF. H1 I-94 is valid mid-2025. Use advanced parole. Expiry date 7/24 on the passport. The same showing online on I-94. My EAD AP expires in June 2024. What is I-94 expiry date? Date of valid I-94 form 797 or AP expiry. What is how long can I stay in the U.S. is the question.
Yeah. So this is the first. This is what makes me want to reiterate our thought. These are complex questions, and the devil's in the details. And one thing we can't see is documents. What it sounds like to me is somebody, again, entered on AP and got a 994 that says, what are they? Probably it says PA, indicating that you've been paroled. And they typically give those of 1 year duration. And the question is, well, how long am I allowed to stay as a parolee? Well, the bottom line is,
as long as your I-485 is valid.
I agree.
Yeah, is really, and they shouldn't be giving those dates. It doesn't make any sense.
Having a properly filed I-45 though allows you to stay in the United States while it is, pending.
This question is for the Prime Minister, not for me.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Brian.
Do you have any update on visa stamping in the U.S.? And the answer, what we heard, was when Prime Minister Modi of India visited, and hung out with Joe Biden. They issued the White House issued a statement of here's the things we talked about. And on that list was, I believe it was sometime during this year, they're going to have a pilot program. And my running joke is that pilot program is going to be a one man visa stamping. It's the pilot equivalent of a radio controlled plane, you know.
All right, Viraj K. I have open work permit in Canada. If I do freelance living in Canada but use U.S. bank account, will that have any immigration issues? I have lived in the U.S. for 11 years. I'm 40 approved. Prior to date, January 2020. Country of birth is India. If you are physically outside the United States and you're doing freelance work in the U.S. using a U.S. bank account or a foreign bank account, you are outside the reach of U.S. immigration laws. Yep. U.S. immigration laws do not dictate your conduct outside the United States, regardless of whether or not you use U.S. bank. Now, then there's a question of taxation, and if you're Canadian, there's a treaty between Canada and the U.S. as far as taxation. We're not going to touch that. That's for a different day and a different discussion. But in terms of any immigration violations under U.S. law, there are none.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, this is a devil's in the details thing. I'm sort of confused by this scenario. If you lived in the U.S. 11 years, but you're also living in Canada, I'm not quite sure where this.
No, he lived in the U.S. and then he moved to Canada. He's one of those guys with a old priority date, gave up and got an opportunity to go to Canada.
Yeah.
And now he is living in Canada, but he's doing freelance work.
Okay.
And that's my
that sounds like a reasonable understanding. I believe it. Yeah.
Brian.
From Emily Marshall. They can do what the NVC does with applicants needed to keep their CES accounts active every year to ensure that the case isn't canceled. They can do that for I-45 data for the VB. So you were talking about, verify you're still interested in this I-140. And for those who don't know, once you've initiated the process of applying for an immigrant visa with the Department of State, they require that if we don't hear from you in a year, we are going to close this case and kill your I-140 by virtue of your non-responsiveness.
As a matter of fact, they also kill your priority date.
Yeah.
You lose your priority date that way. Whereas the USCIS, and it's in the regulations, the State Department regulations, it's not in USCIS regulations. Emily, you make sense.
Yeah.
But you're going to have a lot of people disagreeing with you that this is a good idea because they lose the priority date. But that's a discussion item because that might keep the books clean. If people left the country, people left the country.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it is really. I mean, occasionally we come across somebody who has a really low priority date, and then they go for. They come back. They come back, and it's. Yeah. I guess we're immigration attorneys, U.S. immigration attorneys, nonetheless, and we're always surprised when somebody, well, why did you get on this thing when it was, but it is what it is. Yep. USCIS keeps them open. So for Morale, I have AOS EAD and H1 with a priority date of July 2014. Given the current situation, would you advise me to stay on H1B or move to EAD?
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
No one size fits all. Pros, H1Bs.
Protection. It's been good to you for the last, decade plus. It's keeping you legal in the United States and working. And now you have, a pending adjustment of status that allows you to stay in the United States, and you have an H-1B that allows you to stay in the United States. If one of these things goes away, well, you don't have to pick up and leave the United States immediately.
So in case of USCIS makes an error and deny an I-485.
It happens. Yeah.
And it happens, you have an H-1B to rely on, whereas if the I-45 is denied, then you really are accruing unlawful presence, fighting it, so you're taking a big personal risk.
Yeah.
Cons, negatives.
Lacking that flexibility. There are a lot of companies out there will turn their nose up to sponsoring an H-1B ever, and that's a job opportunity you've lost. I mean, this is fundamentally not just an immigration question. It's what trajectory do you want your life to take question.
There are more companies that are willing to file H-1Bs today than 10 years ago, but the trend way back is really eventually get off the H-1B and move on to the EAD and open up a whole world of opportunities for yourself. Probably that hasn't changed, Brian.
Yeah.
It does do that with the understanding that that you have that exposure or vulnerability. Now, Brian and I have always advocated multiple 485s for multiple I-140s. That does create that security because if one I-45 is denied, you have the other one to keep you in the country legally.
People ask me questions like, can I have like I-145, an I-45 filed through employer A's I-140 and an I-45 filed by employer B's I-140? And my answer is yes. Yes, that's awesome. It's called, if there's any, if there's a problem with this I-140, if this one's not approvable, you have an entirely different basis for your green card. I'm always advocating for take as many paths to a green card as you possibly can because you don't know you're going to get it until it's in your hand.
All right, excellent. All right, wonderful. I don't know, but I think we are probably wrapping up today, Brian.
Yeah.
Is there more?
Oh, yeah. Let me see.
Did I miss anything?
Maybe we are not at the end. Really, thanks for, there's the one right.
Make sure that we're not overlooking anybody.
I think it's right here.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for catching.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
From HF, I am on parole. H1 still valid. Working on same H1 and sponsored employer. Can I travel to Mexico? Use my valid I-797 at port of entry. Being on parole, visa revalidation. What would put me back on H1? So one of the requirements for automatic visa revalidation is that you have to be in status, as to the best of my recollection. And the problem you would have is that you would not be able to do that. The simple answer for somebody to get back on valid H-1B is go for stamping at the consulate, get yourself a visa stamp, and enter using that.
So Brian is giving you the correct answer, but the conservative one.
The
conservative one as well, right?
Yeah.
There has been clear documented cases in which, as long as you don't have to be, although the regulation says you have to be in valid status when you leave the country and then coming back to rejoin that valid status or other valid status, meaning when you depart on status, you're a parolee. And that's where Brian is conservative a little bit on that.
Well,
but there's a documented cases of
we heard a lot of people getting actually approved for getting new I-94s in this scenario, but then there was some pushback, and maybe they got a better hands on the policy.
However, for you, with a parole in your hand, you really don't have a risk. You can definitely leave the country and present your I-797 and request to be admitted on an H-1B. And if they admit you on an H-1B, you're on an H-1B. The problem a lot of time I have with this is there's no documentation. They don't even stamp you. They say go in, come on in. There's sometimes they don't even stamp your passport, which create this confusion. But I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's worth trying. With a valid parole, I think you're fine.
Your mileage may vary. I would.
The distinction we're making is highly technical, but practically, yes, it's worth a try, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Brian?
Yeah. I think there's one right here we haven't addressed there. From How. Just received my combo. I presume that's a combo card. Any downside to use green card EAD to start a second job, part-time or self-employed, while an I-45 is pending for just 100 days?
No, I don't see a problem.
Yeah, that EAD is there to be used. It is valid once you get it. The only, asterisks I would say is you're not allowed to change job to a same or similar occupation until you've hit that 180-day mark, but you are allowed to take on side projects as long as it is in your heart and your mind that until you're allowed to do otherwise, that you intend to take the permanent position that's offered on your I-140, your Supplement J, and the basis of your I-45. There you are.
Yep. Wonderful. With that,
I think we've hit the end of our time here, as well as the end of our
Thank you guys for your contribution today and listening. We look forward to talking to you one more time Monday at 6 o'clock